jump into it. Well, welcome everyone to our Tuesday night actives call. We really appreciate you all making time this evening or afternoon, depending on where you are throughout the country, but nonetheless for taking time. And as Angie pointed out, no excuses. You can be riding on the back of a horse. You could be, reading a book in your living room or taking time out from conversations with friends outside at the park. I know Paige always at the park as well, Coco on a stationary bike, wherever you are. Even if your camera's not on, you can go on mute and enjoy the conversations that we have on our Tuesday nights because they're all educational, very informative, and also very fun. So tonight, we being our second Tuesday, we have our newcomer call. So before I turn the time over to David, do we have any newcomers on this call to start off our 2020 Year of the Tiger? If you are, get yourself off of mute, introduce yourself, or if you're shy, just put in the chat who you are. We'd love to welcome our newcomers, and we welcome all that are here. Anyone that's new to the business on our call today?
Chani, hello everyone from Vegas.
Hi, Chani.
Wow, Chani from Vegas. Welcome.
Getting my nails done.
I thought I was going to say that. That looks like a nail salon. That's awesome. See, no excuses, people. Chani, thank you so much for joining us. I hope your nails come out just as beautiful as you are.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for joining. Anyone else?
Hi.
Yes.
Donna Key from
Vegas
Chapel
in the
Hill,
house?
North Carolina.
Chapel Hill. We have a car hill in the house. All right, Johnny.
Right.
Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Where in North Carolina?
Chapel Hill.
Oh, a little ways. I'm Asheboro.
Right.
Well, that's great. Well, we have a few other new faces that I haven't seen. So if you want to say hello, please do. If you just want to say hello on the chat, that's fine too. But it's and all of us are relatively new to this. The company's still pretty young, and especially here in the United States, we're very young. So it still remains a newcomer's call for pretty much everyone involved. So even I, as the OG of the group, am kind of a newcomer with this thing. So we'll just leave it there, Stu. You don't have to expound upon that part of it.
No, anyway. I will leave it at that. Yes, and we got Cassie from Emery County, Utah, joining us as well. She typed in the chat. So welcome everyone. And as you know, it being our second Tuesday of the month, you are privileged and blessed to hear from our very own CEO of our company, David Brown. I would ask Angie to turn back her camera back on because I definitely like looking at a horse better than I do David Brown. So that's more entertaining.
Easy there.
But since our horse cannot speak today, I think David will be filling in for that. So for those that want to be entertained, you get to look at a horse, but listen to David Brown's voice. But nonetheless, I have high regards for Mr. David Brown. He is one of a mentor in my life, especially when it comes to business, but more importantly, the ethics of business is what he's best at. He's a man of his word, and he likes to get everyone involved in the company. I'm not just talking about corporate. I also talk about each and every one of you. He talks about you a lot. He thinks and prays about each and every one of you and your groups. And in business, it's hard to find people of such high esteem like David. He'll tell you that he's a recovering lawyer. And so even more so as a recovering lawyer, to be a person with integrity like he does just speaks volume for him and the company that he and him and Ryan Thompson was able to bring to us, and we're enjoying the fruits of their labors and their leadership. So he will be taking the time today to tell you about our company and what makes us so special. So I will turn the time over to Mr. David Brown.
Thanks, Stu. Did you guys all witness what I just did? Now, I've known Stu for a long time. he did some really fancy, you know, he's Hawaiian, and Hawaiians are good at dancing. Did you see how he just danced away from saying that it's better to look at the south end of a northbound horse than me? And then he goes on and talks about all those nice things about me. It's like, I was about to say that you were all going to be witness to a historic moment, that after 12 years of working together, this was going to be Stuart Carvalho's last night with Actives. But no, he saved it pretty well. Good job, man. So it's great to be with everybody. Happy New Year. We hope that the new year's off to a great start for everybody. It's hard to believe that we're in 2022. If we were still writing checks, I would probably still be writing like 2012 on my checks if I, but it's kind of hard to believe that we're in 2022. But welcome. We're going to spend some time talking about Actives, where we came from and where we are and where we're going, and what we see all of your role in this. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and bring up a PowerPoint to help me do this. Let's see here. Okay, so we talked about, you know, how we're talking about going forward and where we've been, and Actives is only 4 years old now, and so it's a good time to look ahead while also looking and seeing what we've accomplished in the past. We've done a lot, and we're going to talk about that. Some of you that know me pretty well know that I like to climb mountains, and this is actually a picture from a mountain of the ranch where I was raised in Utah, and it's being taken from the perspective of a mountain right behind the house that I grew up. And in fact, it's on that mountain with my then 8-year-old grandson, Max, and we've climbed that mountain and looking down over the valley where our ranch is, where I grew up. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? We all share a lot of commonalities with our backgrounds and our families and things like that. But then when we get right down to it, we realize, hey, everybody's got their own unique kind of cool background that once we find out about it, it's really cool to learn more about each other. You know, like you, I was first introduced to, well, like many of you, I'm not sure if everybody, but I was introduced to direct sales and network marketing by someone sending me a video. All right. In this case, I had been in the nutritional supplement industry, first as a lawyer, then as a CEO of various companies. I'd been in it for probably 15, 17 years. And the reason somebody sent me this video about a product that had been featured on ABC Primetime was actually not to see if I was interested in joining the company as a distributor, but was to see if I'd be interested in joining the company as their CEO. And so when I saw this, I thought, I've never heard of this company. I've never heard of this product that's talking about getting an edge on life and seeing if you can turn back the clock. But in fact, it was kind of amazing to me that I hadn't heard about it, because by the time I saw this video, it was about 2 years old, 3 years old. And I was amazed because I'd been in the industry, been the CEO of some pretty large companies. I thought I had my finger kind of on the pulse of the industry, and I'm thinking, how did I not see this particular piece? Well, it just happened to be that I was on vacation overseas, and I just missed it. So when I decided to look into that company, I thought, well, I think there's something here. It reduced something that was called oxidative stress, which I didn't know anything about. If you'd asked me what an antioxidant was, I would have said, I think it's something that's good for you, but I don't really know that much about it. And if you would have asked me about free radicals, I would have said, yes, I know about free radicals. Those are those people who are graduates from the University of California, Berkeley, or Chapel Hill. Sorry, that's kind of a bad dad joke there. But there's not a lot of radicals, free or otherwise, in Chapel Hill, though, are there, Janaki? That's more a California thing. But I didn't know anything about it. And I was actually taught about oxidative stress and free radical biology, and the fact that over 200 diseases are tied to oxidative stress by someone who really was the father of free radical biology, someone named Dr. Joe McCord. and found out that he had come up with a formula that reduced oxidative stress to that of a newborn baby, and that it was something that could help everyone if they could just get the word out, really have a vast impact for good upon their health. Well, the problem was they didn't really know how to get it out. Their board is filled with finance guys and scientists, and they were trying to sell it through GNC and other retail outlets. And while the message of oxidative stress is important, it takes a little bit of time to tell it. And I just said, you're in the wrong channel. I said, let's go into network marketing. And like many of you, when someone first asked you if you're interested in network marketing, the boards, and we're a publicly held company, the board said, no way, we're not getting into network marketing. We know that that's just, pyramid schemes and snake oil and all this kind of stuff. And I said, listen, the largest companies in the world in the supplement field are all network marketing companies. People make fun of Amway all the time. And guess what? Amway doesn't care, because Amway is doing about $16 billion worth of revenue a year. And so they don't care if people make fun of them. Herbalife doesn't care. Okay. They're doing about $5 billion, and you can talk and so those companies that are actually featured in GNC, their brand, and even GNC that itself is a very small company compared to these large network marketing companies. And so I said, listen, we're going to tell the truth. We're not going to make bad claims about products or the opportunity to get rich. We're going to just tell the truth. And that this is going to be a really good channel for us. And guess what? This little company that was $3 million a year in revenue and losing $1 million, about ready to go out of business, by getting the right people, not necessarily me, but by me being able to associate myself with some good people, we were able to take that company from 3 million to over 200 million in a pretty short order. And in fact, some of those people, people like Ryan Thompson and Angie Hawthorne, and Stu Carvalho, they were all very key instrumental people in taking that company to where it was and what we accomplished. So fast forward, time went by, we had great success, and it was time to move on to other challenges. And so when Ryan and I got back together after some time apart, about 5 years ago, we said, why don't we do something that's a little different, see if we can improve upon what we did before, and see what we can do. So we did that, and we got together, and like you, when you consider your business opportunities before you, and at this time of year, people are considering lots of things. They're considering new habits, they're considering new opportunities and what they want to get into. And so for us, we knew that global supplement sales, huge industry, $165 billion. The US supplement market, almost $50 billion. There's a huge drivers in the wellness and beauty category. And on top of that, we knew that there were trends in terms of obesity, in terms of inflammation, in terms of skin health and skin care, that just was making these markets bigger and bigger and bigger. Primarily because there really weren't a lot of great solutions out there. And people, there are tons of products, but people weren't really finding the satisfaction, which is why they jumped from product to product to product. And on top of that, and especially because of the pandemic, this whole idea of a gig economy, of people wanting to find something else to supplement their family's revenue, their family, I guess families don't really talk about revenue, their family's income, all right? People were looking for that. And they were looking at, that's why they considered things like Uber and working part-time for Amazon, or doing something online totally themselves. And how many people want to become TikTok stars or Instagram stars? Not everybody's looking for something. Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are looking for something to supplement and take them beyond where they are. And so, we said, listen, we want to stay in the wellness space. This definition of wellness was actually introduced to the company by one of our advisory board members. We'll talk more about him a little bit. But Dr. Joe Maroon, a world famous neurosurgeon, the head team doctor for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and also the head of medicine and and protective care for the WWE, but I like the way he put this. He said, wellness is an active process of becoming aware and making choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life. I like the whole idea of active process, dynamic process, and that's actually where the name Actives came from, because we knew that there were a lot of things that we can do. We don't just have to sit back and say, sorry, this is the hand that life dealt me. You know, I'm not entirely thrilled about the fact that I'm short, I'm bald, and not the best looking guy, as Stu reminded me just a few minutes ago. I'm not extremely thrilled about that whole thing. On the other hand, what I am thrilled about is that I have options, and there are things that I can control. I can control whether I'm going to lead a healthy lifestyle. I can control, you know, the types of people that I associate with, and the things and where I put my time, my money, my talents, my efforts. And those are the type of things that I want to control and will control. So it's like, are we going to be well or not? Look at this. Almost 2 million deaths annually in the US are preventable if people just would take into account risk factors. You know what the overwhelming number of those risk factors are? Diet and lifestyle. So that's where we entered into this science. I mentioned before that the health and wellness space is huge, hundreds of billions of dollars. But a lot of those products, frankly, are not necessarily bad, but they are limited in their science. They're based upon old science. And there's a lot of what I call Me Too products, things that are just out there and they're all saying the same thing. We went down an entirely different route. We went down and embraced the science of epigenetics. And again, from Dr. Maroon, we're talking about those factors that can influence our genes to be either healthy or unhealthy. Now, for a long time, okay, actually, even while they were decoding the DNA and the human genome project that was unbelievable in mapping out the entire human genome, and took, you know, decades and hundreds of maybe billions of dollars to do. But even during that time, and certainly well before that, the whole idea of doing anything about your genes was just dismissed as impossible. Like, your genes are what your genes are, they're going to do what they do, and that's it. But increasingly and overwhelmingly, we now know through science that we do practically everything that we do, whether we intend to or not, influences how our genes operate in a healthy or an unhealthy way. If we eat well, we're influencing them in a good way. And when I say influence, we're talking about not just like, oh, that's good for the genes. We're talking about, no, are we causing those genes to operate or not operate in the way they're supposed to? So look at this list of things that Dr. Maroon set forth. Your nutrition, the activity, your emotional state, even our very thoughts affect our genes. And then our environment. Is it polluted? Is it clean? Or what are we doing about it? So these are the things that he said, you know, indicate, and this is, you know, this is a slide that indicates our cells and our mitochondria and the molecules that are involved in signaling, and how everything influences those things. What we mentioned before: exercise, nutritional factors, emotional health, and environment. So it might have been kind of a bold vision. It might have been kind of audacious for us to think that as a startup company, we were going to enter this realm of deep science, of epigenetics. But we said, hey, why not? Let's do it. But it wasn't quite that cavalier, because we knew the scientists. We had connections to cutting edge research that was going to really make a difference. So it was, while all of this stuff, it wasn't just going to be like the weather, where people just talk about it and nobody does anything about it. We were going to talk about epigenetics, and guess what? We're going to give people the tools to actually do something about it. So look, this is a good example of what I'm talking about. This is a slide that shows actual treatment of cells, all right? And genes within these cells. And you can see that there are lights that go on, and that represents truly genes that are coming on, turning on. And you might say, well, how do they do that? Well, the way they did it is that they created a formula, a solution, and guess what that solution was? What we call genomics, all right? And in that solution, they included an enzyme that's not in the genomics that you take, all right? That enzyme's sole purpose is to glow when a gene is activated. And so that enzyme, which is called luciferase, all right, when the gene activates, it actually glows. And they tested a full array of genes, excuse me, and determined that genomics, for example, as a NRF2 activator, and you saw in an earlier slide that indication of something called a transcription factor, which is a specialized protein. But in any event, it showed that genomics was affecting and causing the proper response. So a modulated approach, meaning turning them on when they're supposed to be turned on, turning them down when they're supposed to be turned down, turning them off when they're supposed to be turned off. That's especially important in regards to inflammatory genes or cytokines. And it affected over 1,000 of these, what are sometimes referred to as survival genes. This is actually a even better representation of it. Look at that. This is, you might say, well, what in the heck is that? Well, it looks kind of Christmassy in terms of being red and green, but it's much more than that. What it does is this is indicating that full gene array of genes that it turned on and genes that it turned off. And you can see by virtue of the color fluctuations that modulation I was talking about, because it's not just an on-off switch that's on our genes. It's more like a dimmer switch. So the activity of the gene can be raised to different levels and lowered to different levels. And that leads us to genomics. It really is cutting edge gene therapy. It protects against aging. It protects against all of those 2,000 genes or 2,000 diseases I was talking about are related to oxidative stress. And it really does, I like the last point that we talked about there, it modulates gene expression, leading to increased human performance. And that varies depending on whatever we're facing. Right now, the scientists recently published a research publication, a research study that showed the effect of NRF2 in our formula as a therapeutic agent for COVID-19. All right, and what's amazing about that is the mechanism of activity is very similar to those of some of the vaccines, and the efficacy is very similar to those of some of the vaccines. So what don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't get the vaccines. What I'm saying is you have an additional tool in your toolbox to make sure that your genes, your cells, your body at every single level, down to the mitochondria that are contained, that are within your cells, can be strengthened. We can turn down those inflammatory cytokines and turn up those immune system building cells. Now, we don't just have genomics, as you know, we have OptimEnd. And OptimEnd is based upon tetrahydrocurcumin. And by the way, there's going to be a test after this, so I hope you guys are taking notes. No, I'm just kidding. Come on, Stu, take some notes, dude. But the OptimEnd is not one bit behind from an epigenetic standpoint from genomics. And what I mean by that is, again, we started with high technology. Everyone's heard about curcumin. Everyone's heard about turmeric. And yeah, you can go out and eat a bunch of Indian curry, which I love. Okay, I love curry of all types, Japanese, Indian, Thai, whatever it is. And turmeric is a component, especially in Indian food and Indian Ayurvedic medicine. It's been known for really millennia about the positive impacts upon the body of turmeric. Now, curcumin is actually a phytonutrient, a constituent of turmeric, okay? So curcumin is part of turmeric. And what modern science has discovered is that a metabolite, or something that curcumin is broken down into naturally by the body, called tetrahydrocurcumin, is the metabolite most responsible for acting upon those inflammatory cytokines that increased inflammation in our body. Now, I mentioned that oxidative stress is tied to over 200 diseases. If you Google the dangers of inflammation, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find that inflammation is also linked to all of those 200 diseases and even more. Inflammation is the big bad boogeyman of disease and bad health. And if we can decrease inflammation, we need to do it. It's kind of a chicken and an egg situation with oxidative stress caused by free radical damage, leading to inflammation, which guess what? When there's more inflammation, there's more oxidative stress, and it just becomes this terrible spiral of declining health for our cells and for our genes. So we took this tetrahydrocurcumin and we put it into this patented delivery system where we take every single molecule of tetrahydrocurcumin and we put it in another molecule of something called I just spaced it, a starch. Angie, help me out.
Cyclodextrin.
Cyclodextrin, yeah. I was on a roll there. And I was on a roll until I wasn't. Cyclodextrin. And what that does, it essentially kind of creates a shrink wrap. So it protects it on its way through the gut and it delivers it safely to the small intestine or the kidney or the liver, wherever it's going to be metabolized correctly and spread throughout the body. Now, we all know about the inflammation that comes when we sprain an ankle, when we've been working out, when we've just been overexerting ourselves, the pains and aches that happen in those cases. That pain is caused by inflammation, right? But there's something that actually might even be more dangerous. In fact, no might about it. It is, because when the inflammation we know about, we take steps to address. The silent inflammation, the chronic low-grade inflammation that Dr. Sanjay Gupta refers to when he talks about a world on fire, is that low-level inflammation that's caused by our diets, by stress, all these things that Dr. Maroon put in on this slide. So what we need to do is, even though Optimend is very, very important for the acute inflammation, the things that we're actually feeling, the reason people need to take it every single day, whether they think that they're feeling pain or not, is to address and rebalance that silent inflammation that's linked to heart disease, degenerative brain diseases, heart attacks, all of those things. Again, as I talk about these things, you can tell that I get excited about it because I mentioned the audaciousness of a company, of a startup, to think that they can get into the field of epigenetics. Well, guess what? We're not just in the field of epigenetics. We're on the very cutting, bleeding edge of epigenetics. And right behind it is LINQ. We've all heard about the importance of gut health. I just saw a commercial the other day where it talked about, it's for a prebiotic product, and talking about the connection between gut health and mood. I don't know if some of you have seen that commercial. Well, guess what? There's a relationship between gut health and almost everything. You know, Hippocrates was the one who said all disease begins in the gut. He may not have been exactly 100% true, but pretty close. Now, not only do they know that there's a lot of connections between the immune system, about 85% of our immune system resides in our gut. And by the way, I love talking about this because at my age, and I don't know with it, you know, how far this, you know, has continued, but when I was a kid, gut was just a slang word for stomach. If you got punched in the gut, you got punched in the stomach. And so I thought, they talk about gut, they talk about the gut-brain connection. What do scientists, what do doctors think of when they use the word gut? And so I asked them, I said, when you guys use the word gut, is that like a term of art? Is that a real, they go, yeah, we use it gut all the time to refer to the gastrointestinal system generally, which is everything basically from your neck on down to your rear end, not including your heart and your lungs. Everything else on the inside, pretty much your gut and gastrointestinal system. And did you know that we all know what neurons are, right? Neurons are our brain cells. And do you know what our neurons use to operate in our brain? They use specialized chemicals called neurotransmitters. Guess where like 85 to 90% of those brain chemicals, those neurotransmitters, are made? In your gut. So if you don't have a healthy gut, guess what? You're not going to have a healthy brain. That's why they call it the gut-brain connection. Another reason they call it that is because we have literally millions of neurons, brain cells, actually in our gut, which control things independently of the brain. Did you know we have more neurons in our gut than a dog has brain cells? It's pretty amazing, actually. So our gut's pretty smart. So when we talk about listening to our gut instinct, there's a reason for that. That's not just a cliche. That just makes sense then, that you want to make sure your gut and those endothelial cells are as tight as possible. So they introduce nutrients in the most effective way possible. So you're getting the most out of your food, but keeping out the bad stuff, which is what those endothelial cells do, and making sure that you have a healthy environment for those friendly bacteria to grow and create those chemicals that our brain and indeed our entire body needs. So we talk about the epigenetic benefits of butyric acid, okay? How about these? Is anybody interested in any of this stuff? Or would this be part of a good business if you had something to offer people? Anti-carcinogenic and chemopreventative effects. Now this slide again is taken from Dr. Maroon. As a neurosurgeon, guess what he's done? When he talks about anti-carcinogenic and chemopreventative effects, let's face it, he's talking about cancer. He's done over 30,000 operations in his life, most of which are tumor removal, and most of which are, well, not I wouldn't say most of which are cancerous, but a large percentage of which are cancerous. And so he knew a lot about butyric acid and curcumin well before he even ever joined our company. In fact, he knew about the importance of butyric acid for anti-inflammatory effects on obesity, cardiovascular, all of these type of things, so much that he and his colleague, Jeff Boast, who's a professor himself, had gone down the route of saying, we want to try and create a bar that we can introduce butyric acid in for the Pittsburgh Steelers and for our patients and others. And the reason that they wanted to put into like a chocolate bar is because butyric acid in its natural form stinks, okay? No, there's no other way to put it. It stinks. And it tastes nasty. And so they were trying to put it in a bar to cover it up. And he said, David, we just couldn't do it. He said, we always said that if we could deal with the taste and the smell issues, we would have, and this is, and some of you heard me quote this a lot, but it's powerful. He said, we think we would have the holy grail of supplements. And then he said, how did you do it? I said, well, I didn't do it. But we licensed it from a science and research group that's really smart. And guess what? It was that whole cyclodextrin thing, that Psylocke and DexKey technology. And I just want to deviate here for a second. Psylocke refers to that process that I mentioned of putting each molecule, in this case, of butyric acid into a molecule of cyclodextrin. But guess what? That's not where the patent pending aspect of this comes in. The actual patent pending aspect of this, because that technology has actually been used in food and pharma for decades. But here's the key part, and we don't talk about this enough, is the DexKey. What that means is that if it doesn't have the DexKey, which is an amylase, all right? If it doesn't have the amylase as part of that whole protection around butyric acid or tetrahydrocurcumin, it's just, yes, I mentioned how it's going to be protected all the way through the system. It's going to be protected all the way through the system and out. It's never going to release. By having the amylase in there, as it gets through the gut, that amylase activates, and now guess what? Releases from its cage, so to speak, that molecule of butyric acid or tetrahydrocurcumin. So now it can be metabolized, it can be used. So if you see someone else, and guess what? There's another company I recently heard of that is talking about using cyclodextrin. Don't be fooled, because all they're doing now is creating expensive waste matter in your toilet because they don't have amylase, which means that it's not being protected. It's being protected all the way through your system and out, but it's not being released because it doesn't have the amylase. And if it did have the amylase, guess what? They'd be violating a patent and they'd be sued and they wouldn't be able to operate. And they're smart enough to know that they can't do that. So they don't put the amylase in. Sorry, Stu said I'm a kind of a recovering lawyer. I just kind of lapsed back into my whole lawyer thing there for a minute. It's a daily process. I take the trifecta every single day to get over being a lawyer, okay? And I recommend that you do too. So summary, epigenetics. It refers to our diet, our physical activity, all of these things. We use ingredients that activate genes. That's where the whole word actives, the whole name of the company came. The power to activate, okay? That's really important. Now, as we're now into the new year, I don't know if any of you have weight loss resolutions, but if you don't, I guarantee you have some friends who do. And AIRO is one more tool in that toolbox to help you do it. Every single one of these ingredients is epigenetic, whether that's to balance blood sugar so you don't have cravings, whether it's to increase the amount of calories that we're burning, whether it's to increase the number of mitochondria in our cells so that we can burn calories more efficiently, whether it be to have a satiation effect so you don't feel as hungry, or an appetite suppressant effect. All of these ingredients serve to do that. And we have great testimonials about people who are having a wonderful result with AIRO. And then finally, we talked about, if you remember that slide that I showed a little while ago, it talked about the environmental effects the environment has effects upon epigenetics as well. And that's best, actually, that's manifested on our skin, and in two ways. One, our environment affects our skin, whether that be damage caused by the sun or polluted air. But the other thing that's reflected on our skin is how good our internal health, how good our gut health is. And so there's a tremendous connection between beauty on the inside and beauty on the outside. And again, I'll never be, I'm not sure about my insides, but my outsides will never be referred to as beautiful. But what you got to do is take as good a care of it as you can, so that, I will never make claims about extending life. I don't know about lifespan, but what I do know about, I know about health span. And so whatever years we've got, let's make them as robust, as active, and as active as we can, because that's what this is all about. So some of you have seen me use this slide before. I think this slide, these two slides I'm about to share, really kind of summarize my vision of actives. Okay, I love to hike. I love to climb mountains. One thing I do know about, in all the time I've climbed mountains with my boys, with scouts, with other people, especially on the hard climbs, all right, is that I've never been on a hike where some of the boys or my kids have said, Dad, Mr. Brown, can't we stop? This is too hard. I don't want to do this, okay? At some point along the way of that hike, somebody, probably all of them at some point, is going to say, and this is just way too hard, okay? The other thing that has never failed to occur is once they get to the top of the mountain and see, the view, is all of them are like, oh man, this is so amazing. I'm so glad I didn't give up along the way. Well, this is a scene of a grove of sequoias. And if you've ever been to Sequoia National Park or anything like that, you know what I'm talking about. And redwoods are the same way. See how they're growing close together? Well, the reason for that is that the root system of sequoias and redwoods are very shallow, very, very shallow. And if you go through Sequoia National Park, you'll find some trees that have blown over. And you'll be amazed, like I was, say, man, this is a huge tree, one of the largest living things that's ever existed and oldest that's ever existed upon the earth. And look how shallow the root system is. So you might say, well, how do they survive? Well, they survive by doing what the previous slide showed. When they grow together, they intertwine their branches, and they also intertwine their roots, and that supports them so that they can withstand fires, they can withstand high winds, they can withstand heavy snows, and the ones that fall over are almost invariably ones that grew up just by themselves, where they didn't have the opportunity to intertwine with somebody else. So when you join actives, now that you've joined actives, who are you intertwining with? Well, for better or for worse, I think better. You're intertwining with everybody that's on this call. You're intertwining with members of our advisory board like Dr. Maroon, Admiral Winter, Dr. Earl, Sinead Irwin, Dr. Hernandez. These are all people who are outstanding in their fields, whether it be pain management, whether it be a media professional, whether it be someone who's also in his own right, like Dr. Hernandez, a pioneer in free radical biology. You now are connected to them. They're lifting you up and you're helping them as well. These are some of the other people. Whether it be Rajesh Durbal, a triple amputee who takes Optimend all the time as he runs triathlons. Whether it be Mama Coco down in Mexico, the inspiration for Mama Coco in the movie Coco, okay? Whether it be a small group of distributors in Japan, where Stu is there talking, whether it be Marco Demaro, who's a well-known singer in Latin America, or whether it be my granddaughter Tess, who's gonna kill us in about 20 years for dressing her up like Nacho Libre when she was a year and a half old for Halloween. But, or it could be Christina Godoy, right there, shown with my partner, Ryan Thompson, when she became A16 and received her $100,000 check for hitting A16. So what's happened in the 4 years that we've been in business? Well, we've built markets and we have tens of thousands of distributors in Mexico, in Peru, in Colombia, in Bolivia. We have distributors in Japan, in the United States, in Taiwan. And guess what? We're just barely scratching the surface. There are still so many people that we have yet to intertwine with and introduce to actives and help them not only take control of their wellness, but to take control of their financial wellness as well. I can tell you what, that check was not very heavy, okay? But I can tell you it's contributed a lot to Christina Godoy's financial wellness. And finally, I just want to close by, as you're climbing this mountain, as you're building your business, as you're looking to increase your health, and do whatever it is that your goals are, that kind of motivated you to join actives in the first place, you're just not in it by yourself, okay? It's like the founder of Ray Kroc said about McDonald's franchisees. You're in business for yourself, but not in business by yourself. And you'll never be by yourself at actives. We'll never force you to do anything. Of course, you can't do that. You're independent. That's the beauty of being an independent distributor. But the good news is that we'll be there for every bit that you'd like us to be there. And if you don't want us to be there, that's okay too. And so we're just glad to be here with you today. And I know I've taken a little bit of time, but we have a few minutes for some questions. If anybody has some questions about things that I've talked about or things that have just come up that they'd like to bring up tonight. And so take yourself off mute if you have anything that you'd like to comment or ask.
David, I'll go ahead and ask you some of the questions that came in the chat as you were presenting. The first is, you made a comment that LINQ is the Holy Grail. Now, what are you referring to when you say the Holy Grail? The Holy Grail of what?
The Holy Grail of supplements, okay? That's what the statement was. And the good news is, none of you or anybody that you talk to has to believe me. If you want to find out for yourself why Dr. Maroon referred to it as the Holy Grail of supplements, just Google benefits of butyric acid and you'll be blown away, absolutely blown away in terms of things that it does, helping us grow new brain cells. Well, how about this? This is an interesting letter. I'm not sure I've ever read this before. It's dated August 25th, 2017. And this was actually sent to Al Zapp, okay, from Tesseract in regards to our butyric acid that we get from him and that he had shared with somebody. He said, I'm writing to you to update you on the tremendous progress we've seen while using the butyric acid for a 94-year-old Parkinson's patient who is a retired physician. His condition was deteriorating rapidly, and due to his severe adverse reactions to the prescribed Cinemet, we felt at a loss until we received your butyric acid powder. He is unable to swallow capsules, so we opened the capsules by hand and gave them to him. We saw significant changes in the first 2 weeks. The tremors in his hands are now almost non-existent, and his speech has improved. He's been on it now for approximately 3 months, now at a dosage of taking it 3 times daily. According to his family, he never misses a dose. Thank you again for extending this product pre-release to us, and we'll keep you updated to his increasing progress. It's when you see stories like that. Now, that's not necessarily indicative of what everyone will experience, but there, as one of those slides mentioned, and as Dr. Maroon has emphasized, there are tremendous neuroprotective, neuroregenerative aspects of butyric acid. And so things that we typically thought of in the past as being issues of the brain, okay, definitely have their derivation in the gut and vice versa. And so butyric acid, frankly, some scientists have referred to it as a God molecule. It does so much for the overall health of our bodies. It's just unbelievable. So that's why it was called the Holy Grail.
Great. And then when you talked about LINQ and Optimin, you brought up the term Silox-Dex-Key, which is a patent pending technology that we have here at Actives that allows the supplements to go into our body, into our gut to be absorbed. So the question is, what if I have cysts in my kidneys, and where does the pills absorb to?
Okay. Now, I've talked about this with Dr. Earl before in terms of people who have had some renal failures or issues with kidneys. And I can tell you, my own father, who is in stage 4 of renal failure, has seen his renal problems stopped, okay, and progress achieved by virtue of LINQ and the entire trifecta. So there's not going to be an issue with the cysts in the kidneys. Now, the issue of metabolism, where precisely does it metabolize, is a little complicated, okay? Most of it is not done in the kidneys. Most of it is done as it gets through the duodenum in the small intestine. But the liver and the kidney, as well as the small intestine, all play a role in metabolizing various things that we do. But most of these are metabolized primarily in the small intestine, some degree in the liver, very little impact from a metabolism standpoint in the kidney. Although there's a lot of it, once it's metabolized, it's sent to the kidneys and other places for use.
Great. And finally, the last question that came up in the chat, and then I'll turn the time over to each and every one of you for whoever has a question. It says, any plans for pet products?
Pet products. Well, you could say that just like in a prior company, what led to pet products were people utilizing our human products on pets. I can tell you that while it's not always true that things that humans can take and use safely, pets can, because we know that that's not true. Chocolate and other things can be very, very dangerous for pets. But none of these ingredients are contraindicated for pets. Pets suffer from oxidative stress even more acutely than we do. They suffer from inflammation. They suffer from disease and joint issues. Curcumin, for example, has gained widespread use in both the dog and the horse community. I know Angie, for example, gives Optimen to her horse, and so there will probably be some time until we come out with specific pet products. But in the meantime, there's all types of evidence and all types of anecdotal use of the current products with their pets. I would not discourage that. It's safe to use with your pets.
What's the dosage for pets?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. And the short answer is we've not done studies. So I would start out with a small dose of, depending on the size. It's not, as Dr. McCord often said years ago, it's not necessarily the weight that determines the dosage, as opposed to, and this is really quite interesting, some of you might remember this, actually the surface area of the animal. But I thought that was quite interesting when he said that. But I would actually start out with a small amount and just see how they do. Mostly how they do in terms of being able to make sure they're not getting nauseous or anything like that. And then you can take it up to a larger amount and see how they do. I think most of the things that we've seen have been people utilizing their own kind of trial basis to see how their pets respond.
And I can tell you, so Jerry Scribner uses Optimen on his Corgi and has had fantastic results. He would use half a Optimen in the morning and half an Optimen at night for his Corgi. If you guys aren't familiar with what a Corgi is, they probably weigh about, I would say anywhere from like 20 to 30 pounds. For me, we give it to our golden doodle, and he's a full-size golden doodle, and he weighs about 85 to 90 pounds. And I give him one Optimen in the morning and one Optimen at night. And we've seen tremendous results to the point that if we forget to give it to him, it's noticeable. And so we definitely make sure that we're very consistent with giving him the Optimen morning and night. And like David said, I do give Optimen I actually give all three products to my horses. The dosage I give to my horses, and again, there's no studies, this is just what I feel like has been working for them, is 1 genomics a day. I give them 2 LINQ a day, and then I give them 4 Optimen a day.
Okay, is that Tanya? Couldn't tell. Oh, was that Angie? Is that
Angie.
you, Angie?
That was
Angie.
me. That was Angie.
Okay, good. Well, if there's not anything else, anybody have anything else?
Me, David.
Griselda has her hand up. Yes.
Me again. Yes, I know. I just want to make a comment. Like Angie says, in Mexico, we try Genomex in horses with arthritis. One capsule and it works amazing. And the same capsule can work for a Chihuahua. So it's mean no, for me, the way I'm analyzed is if your body don't need it, we pee the product. I don't know how you say the excretions. And the same when it's a horse, which is a big animal, they absorb everything because of the size. So in Mexico, we have a lot of testimonies with dogs, different sizes, and taking capsules. Even we start to give to cats, and cats are very, very picky. So they smell and they are like, I don't, we try in water, they don't like it. We try in the kind of gravy food, but we need to put the capsule like one capsule during the day in doses and mix it correctly because they smell anything and bye. But this is very good. Also one by day, but in different doses during the day. Because one for one little cup, they don't take it. And any dog with amazing results. We have the testimonies.
That's great. And that's largely true, that if they don't need it, our bodies will excrete it. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Excrete it, that is the word. Sorry.
So where would I find this testimony?
I can share with you. I have a lot, even and it's in Spanish. Yes.
Okay, that'd be great.
Angie, do we have any? I'm not sure. I think we have Jerry's testimonial regarding his corgis somewhere. I'm not sure about the others.
We do, yeah. And I do have the video of my horse. If you're familiar with how horses move, then you can notice the difference between my horse when he was before he was taking the products and then after he was on the products. And I'll share this after the call as well. I'll go ahead and share my screen and share that with you guys.
Great.
About a $5,000 surgery.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
I just saw a question in the chat that I was hoping that maybe you guys would answer. I think it was 4 Actives asked if someone has a problem with absorbing curcumin, will they have a negative effect with Optimin? I don't know if you had answered that already or not, but I wanted to hear the response to that, if you could touch on that.
Thanks, Wayman. By the way, you're looking really cool there tonight, man. So we're glad to have you with us. Actually, you know what? Almost everyone has a problem with absorbing curcumin because it's a large molecule. And in fact, if you go to PubMed or just Google the benefits of curcumin, you'll see studies, lots of studies. I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of studies on curcumin or turmeric. And they'll talk about the anti-carcinogenic effect, the anti-inflammatory effect, but almost every one of those studies will end with something like this. Unfortunately, because curcumin and turmeric are large molecules, they're not easily absorbed in the body. And so it's really hard to get enough into the system. So that's the reason why we start with a smaller molecule in tetrahydrocurcumin and put it in the Silox system. But no, I don't anticipate that they would have any type of issues. They'll have better absorbability, bioabsorbability, and therefore better benefits. Now, all that said, let me just make one thing. All of these things, there are always one-offs, okay? Meaning that the vast majority of people can eat strawberries and chocolate and peanuts, but there are some people who have allergies, and that's even though I've not heard that yet in regards to the ingredients, it is possible that someone could have an allergic response, but it's very, very unlikely, especially now with the literally millions of doses that have been consumed with these products without incident. Does that help, women?
Yes, sir. I just definitely, I know some people had asked me about, turmeric and curcumin, and
Perfect.
So that definitely helps out. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Hi.
Let me, can I say also something? so many people get scared when they take even curcuma or Henomex. They have some reactions and they immediately are like, no, I'm feeling a headache or any curative crisis. We call that way. And we always encourage them to keep going, don't stop. And that time will pass and they feel better at all. And for one reason, the body responds, but it's a good reason. They have kind of one reaction, even in the skin or headache or stomach issues, but we pass like 1 or 2 weeks, people respond very well after that to the products, but don't stop the products.
Perfect. Okay, who else?
David,
we
I
see?
think C. Witten has a question. She's raising her hand.
Okay.
You're still, oh, I was going to say you're on mute. Okay.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
did. Thanks. I wondered if you need to take fat with anything like genomics or anything in your diet.
You know, that's a good question. Sometimes fats do aid in the absorption of nutrients generally. That hasn't necessarily been shown that fats are any more or less effective for bioavailability with these ingredients, but it doesn't hurt. And so, I mean, I can tell you that there's not a specific time of day or something you need to take with it. Sometimes, and in most cases, there's not even nausea. Like with B vitamins, for example, if you take that without fat or on an empty stomach, most people are going to get a little nauseous if they take B vitamins. But if they notice something like that in regards, yeah, fat can be helpful in that regard.
Good. That was good to know about the B vitamins anyway.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, due to time, we'll just ask David one last question that popped up in the chat. And then we will end the call. So David, they said there's other Nerf2 supplements out there in the market, which is not made by Dr. McCord. Do they work?
Well, that's actually a great question, because there are lots of ingredients and substances that have been shown to be Nerf2 activators. So broccoli, for example, is a Nerf2 activator. Ginger by itself is a Nerf2 activator. There's lots of things that are Nerf2 activators. But that's kind of like saying, does anything with wheels work as well as a Porsche or as a Tesla? And the answer is no. Yeah, you can get from you can move and you can make some progress, but it's not nearly as powerful. And so nothing out there has been shown, and this has been shown, genomics has been demonstrated to be the most powerful Nerf2 activator on the market, period. And until someone shows me studies to the contrary, that will be something that we can legally say, and just from a promotional standpoint, certainly make that representation as well. Now, some people might say, well, wait a minute, if it's the most powerful, do we want it to be the most powerful? Is it too powerful? And that's where actually we need to make sure that we concentrate on it's not necessarily just upregulation. For example, if you have an autoimmune condition, the last thing you want is for your immune system to be upregulated. It's already on fire. You don't need, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, if you have lupus, you don't want your immune system to be upregulated. What you want it to be is downregulated. You want it to be modulated. And so guess what? In those particular cases, Nerf2 operates to modulate and tune down that chronic kind of hyperactive immune response that those have. And so, so that's when I say it's the most powerful, that's also another way of saying it's the most effective immunomodulator on the market. Sometimes you're kind of sorry you asked me these questions, aren't you, Stu? So.
Okay. Well, thanks, David. I know I want to be very conscious of everyone's time. I know this is one of the longer calls that we have on our Tuesday. We usually try to keep it 30 to 45 minutes. And so I'm gonna
Stu, for everybody else who we didn't get to tonight, feel free to contact me directly. You can contact me directly at dbrown@actives.com. And if you have specific questions, and if I can find the answers to them, and if I don't know, I frequently reach out to the members of our advisory board. Okay.
Great.